Welcome to Architects of Innovation, brought to you by Spyglass Partners, where we dive into the minds of IT visionaries and leaders who have paved the way in the tech world. I'm your host, Joseph Jewell, and each week we're going to sit down with top executives to unravel their success stories, explore the skill that got them where they are, and discover how they're giving back to the community. We're here to celebrate their journey, share invaluable insights, and of course, bring you the latest in the ever-evolving tech landscape. Get ready for a blend of inspiration, knowledge, and knowing me, a few surprises along the way. This isn't just a podcast. As the name suggests, it's a conversation with the architects of IT innovation. So without further ado, let's jump into this episode. Sam, introduce yourself, man.
Thanks, Joe. My name is Sam Hutcheson. I have been in the data world in some form or another, in some role or another, since the late 1990s. I think I wrote my first line of operational SQL in 1998. Since then, I've done pretty much anything you can do between base level coding in SQL and sort of trying to run your own data consultancy startup. So between those brackets, that's where I am. That's where I'm from. Happy to be here today.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Happy to have you, of course. So my first question is, so you have a degree in philosophy. So how did you get from just, philosophy to writing SQL code? Like how did you make that jump?
Great start. As I said, I started doing this in 1998. I'm a little older than that. I came into college in 1990 in Atlanta, and I studied philosophy just straight out the bat, straight into freshman year philosophy. And it was the 90s. That time frame, especially in the industry, in IT, software, whatever you want to call it, was a lot more fluid. You didn't really need the bullet point of comp sci on your resume to start. I really did think going through college that I was going to be a philosopher and I was going to write incredibly wise and wondrous things. And then it turns out that in order to actually make a living in philosophy, you probably need to go get a postgraduate degree and then another postgraduate degree, and eventually end up teaching philosophy. We just go in a big circle. And I decided I didn't really want to do that. To be perfectly honest, the academy wasn't precisely the best place for me. So I took what amounts to formal logic code. When you really get down to the nitty gritty of it, is Boolean logic, sequential logic, fuzzy logic. It's all some form of logic, and I had a good deal of that in the studies. So we took what we knew, took what we knew how to do, and we found an opportunity to do it in SQL to start. That sort of landed me in data, and it fit. So I've been here ever since.
So, I mean, in a way, you're still a philosopher. You just use a different language to kind of get those thoughts out there, right?
Engineering in general, software, we're pattern recognition machines in the data industry, right? To be good at this job in this industry, you need to have some basic, the core skill, critical thinking, pattern recognition, the ability to string together arguments, whether they be arguments in a philosophy course or arguments in, C#. You need to be able to string things together. A lot of if-then statements, and it is a sort of philosophical problem solving to the point where you have a problem, you need to build a bridge to get to a solution. How you do that is incredibly open to the way you think about the world.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, just that's a great way to tie that degree like into computer science in your job. Really, like it's pretty cool. And I have seen like a bunch of different degrees like not necessarily computer science or mathematics, like get into the field of computer science. I mean, even teachers becoming, doing career switches midway through and getting into computer science, that kind of stuff, or getting into IT. So seeing that your degree isn't necessarily, computer science and getting into IT, it kind of, it's probably kind of hopeful to other people, right? Like someone that's like on the forefront of, innovation in the data world is, started out with a degree in philosophy.
Yeah. And the other thing about it is coming in it from that sort of sideways angle. If you only come out with an academic training in the way engineering has always been done, it's often hard to find a new way to do something. So having that point of view where, okay, I know this is the way we would have been taught to do it, but maybe this other path would help a little bit better. I think it's helpful, but then again, I'm primed to, because it's what I've done.
Yeah. I mean, if you only learn how things have always been done, then it's harder to think of outside the box. So that makes sense for sure. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey to kind of how you got to where you are today? Because I mean, you didn't just wake up one night and like, hey, now I'm a data architect, right? So I guess tell us a little bit of like the steps of like how you got to where you're at.
Yeah. So like I said, I made the flip from pre IT data software type work to data proper in 97, 98, something like that. I started at the ground level. I did database management, DBA stuff, data cleansing stuff back when you had to write raw SQL before the implementation of actual ingestion cleansing packets. And just sort of worked my way through that, picked things up along the way. I hooked up with some folks out of Indianapolis that I still have great relationships with in 2006, and did senior BI consulting for those guys from 2006 through an acquisition, and that sort of helped me build things there. In that role, I started taking on. We had a leader who left the practice while I was there, and rather than immediately back hire that position, I was allowed to pick it up and run with it a little bit. So I started working with people, working with teams, building out those softer skills a little bit, and that built into a little bit of a pre-sales role. I went on from there and did some pre-sales in the next couple of stops. Like I said, I've been a jack of all trades across the industry, and I think that's been incredibly valuable to me in that it allows me to see the problems and the cases from pretty much any point of view imaginable. I landed with last company I was with was out of North Carolina. I ran their ETL team for a while, and then I sort of started running dual tracking my own idea of a company, putting together thoughts for a business plan, that sort of thing there. How did I become a data architect? I just kept working in data. I kept learning things poorly and listening very, very intently to the smarter people who came along to fix my problems, so that I would know how to do it better next time. And always learning, always listening. That's really the best way to do anything, I think.
So you're saying like the mistakes in a way like made you who you are today?
Absolutely. I think that's true of everyone. I don't want to speak for everyone, but generally speaking, intelligence is learning from your own mistakes, and wisdom is learning from the mistakes other people made before you that you saw. Just trying to say, yeah, okay, I shouldn't let loose, that particular statement in prod without running it through some testing cycles. This is how we would work with a pseudo DevOps process on a database backend, that sort of thing. And this is going to sound a little bit treacly, I think, but perhaps. But honestly, when I say always listening, I've learned as much in the second half of my career after I've started becoming the senior engineer and the architect and the senior architect, listening to younger, talented people who are coming into teams and how they are doing things on different methods than at least as much as I have by doing it myself. So when I say always be listening, you're not just always listening up. You're listening everywhere.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. We got a comment from Richie that says, I wish I knew what it was like to make a mistake so I could learn from it, but I don't do mistakes. Well, yeah, you have to do the opposite of what he said, learn from other people's mistakes as well. So you can still learn from mistakes, just not your own.
Everybody go hire that guy. He does not make mistakes.
He's going to regret that. It's like, why am I drowning in all these job offers?
Yeah.
Oh man. But so is there one mistake that you made like in your career that it's still in your mind like today that you definitely learned a huge lesson from, like maybe you dropped all the tables in a database or something like that? Like what is like one big mistake that you like that you've learned from and just kind of it almost changed your career kind of thing?
Well, I'll answer that in two ways. I mean, yes, absolutely. I have let loose queries in production environments, in databases that and aside from Richie, apparently, most everyone has done that. And the first time you do it, you're absolutely certain you're going to get fired, right? I've unleashed a truncate statement in prod. I'm going to get fired for this. But I mean, that's just sort of, honestly, if you don't make those mistakes, if you're not pushing yourself hard enough so you're at a point where you're making mistakes that matter, I don't think you're really challenging yourself to get better. So what I've learned from there, I mean, process control, paying attention when the senior guy says, no, don't do that. We don't work in prod. We work in test, right? That seems straightforward. It seems clear and obvious, but sometimes, especially if you're in a more cowboy up startup-y world, sometimes you just go in and you're like, I need to fix this. Go in there and fix it, and then I've made it much worse. So the overall lesson I think of that is in any situation I've ever been in, slowing down is by far the best possible thought process, especially in a fire situation, in some sort of environment where you're under the gun to do something, because everyone else is trying to paddle so hard forward. Being the person that slows down and says, let's just think this through for a minute and let's wait for 2 seconds. That's been the core takeaway, especially as a technologist, as an engineer and an architect. Take your time, do it right. I know they're yelling at you. I know they want it yesterday, but their business is to want it yesterday. And if you had given it to them yesterday, they would have wanted it the day before. So trust your instincts on what it takes to actually do the architecture and the engineering piece right, and then go forward with it. The second learning, and this is just I work with a guy, one of the core leaders that really influenced my life, a guy named Stu White, out of that company, and worked with him out of that company in Indianapolis. We were talking on a review process, on a review cycle, one year, and I was not senior but not young in that at that time, and I was like, why am I not getting this? Why is this not happening for me? And Stu just looked at me and said, you don't toot your own horn, man. And I'm like, well, I don't want to be that guy. And he just looked at me, and Stu's from Atlanta like I am, and he has that accent. He was like, Sam, if you don't sing your own song, ain't nobody else sing it for you. So, that's something that stuck with me along the way as well.
Okay, so just kind of advocating for yourself and like, hey, I did this, versus waiting for someone to kind of pat you on the back, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, people, especially technical people, sort of start out with the assumption that if I build the thing right, if I build a super cool toy, a super cool tool, someone's just going to see it and know how cool it is and know how much effort and smart went into building that. And somebody else, another engineer, very well might. But are the folks that are in the senior directors and VP suites and the C suites going to necessarily see the coolness of that technology? Not if you don't tell them how cool it is, and not if it doesn't give them some sort of benefit to the business. So you never want to be overly aggressive with self promotion. At least I don't. I know people who don't mind it. It's not my way. But at the same time, tech is often filled with introverts who aren't comfortable doing that. So breaking out of that fear, that box of fear that just comes with being who we are and how we're wired, is really honestly a key turning point into making a next step outside of just being an engineer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense for sure. And you're not only being able to kind of advocate for yourself, but it's also explaining why it's good for the business, explaining how and what went into making, that new cool tool or tech or something like that. So you're not just advocating for yourself, you're advocating for the technologies and the tools and the business that you're working on too. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Awesome, man. That was an awesome walkthrough of a couple mistakes that definitely got some insight from those. So kind of taking it more toward just the role of a data architect in general. How has the role of the data architect evolved in like the last 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, I mean, so some of the audience may be like, "What's this guy talking about?" I thought we were talking about architecture and engineering today, but 10 years ago, certainly 5 years ago, even the role of an engineer, a senior engineer, an architect was essentially technical, right? And the role of an engineer and an architect today is still technical. It will never not be a technical role. You're an engineer, you're an architect. That's why you're there. But over the last few years, and I think it's increasing and going to go forward in time, the role of an architect, specifically of that higher, more senior position, has to be business savvy and it has to be strategic. If you want to be an impactful data architect going into the next 5 to 10 year run, it's not enough to know what the cool vendors in the AI space are. Who are they? Who's the next Snowflake? Who's the next Databricks? That sort of thing. You need to know why it's important to the business to build an internal large language data model, right? Just because you can isn't good enough. You have to understand, you have to be savvy about the strategy, not only of the technology, but of why the technology is being built by the company you're working for so that you can help move that bottom line forward. I think getting more strategic in that is an absolute necessity for a modern data architect.
Okay, so not just knowing the players in the game, but knowing when to plug and play is.
And honestly, when to speak up and say unplug. Do you generally speaking, in a large organization, as the organizations get larger, the data stack gets more and more convoluted because everyone brings in something that they think seems like the hottest thing today. And then you end up with multiple warehouse or lake house solutions. You end up with some Databricks stuff running in the background. You end up with your Snowflake or your AWS farm out there. It's knowing where to cut loose and say, you know what, we could do all of this in a single tool. It would save us money. Yeah, bottom line stuff. and cleaning up that pipeline. As an engineer, I've always had this sort of mental thing that I always tell myself about, develop, build, do everything with 3 E's in mind: efficiency, effectiveness, and elegance. Efficiency and effectiveness are just straight engineering ideas. Build an efficient system that is effectively does the job it's built to do. But elegance is a little bit more of a philosophy type idea sometimes. You want to build it simple and clean, and you want to do what you need to do, but not extra stuff. And sometimes we put a lot of extra stuff into the data ops world that isn't necessarily required.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, like, that being said, and I mean, there's so many different technologies and stuff like that that you can put together and build a solution. But how does like the modern data stack like really fit and solve real world problems?
Well, the modern data stack, it was the buzzword for a while, and then AI sort of took the thunder out of it, but it's still there. And the modern data stack was essentially you need a collection tool, a collection system, and that's traditionally legacy build would be your ETL pipelines, your SSIS packages, depending on how far the legacy goes back. But some sort of ETL data collection tool, pull the data into a space from application systems, from source systems. Maybe do some transformations in tool, or maybe wait and do that in your storage if you're more of an ELT shop. But the second piece you need in that stack is storage. From storage, you need some sort of processing engine to do transformations, to clean the data, to manage the data. And again, that's a question of tool set. Do you do your transformations on the front end on a true ETL run, or do you drop it into a cloud storage or lake storage system and do transformations on storage, which is more of an ELT process? And then after that, you need some sort of analytics, because no one cares about that you have all the data if you're not giving them business savvy answers. They do care that you're spending that much money for hosting, but so the modern data stack is. I mean, those are, as far as I can tell, those are the 4 core components. The question is, where and what tools do you have at your disposal, and what do you not have? The lines between storage and processing are very, very blurry these days. Snowflake started out as a cloud storage system, but Snowpark is their move into massive processing with multiple languages. Databricks is massively moving in that space now, and AWS has a lot of tools just in their cloud that you can plug and play for just another add-on feature for your AWS subscription. Azure and GCP have the same concepts. It goes back to the question of what's necessary and what's just cool and fun. Do you need a robust ETL tool? I love ETL tools because it's what I've done forever and a day, and I have pretty strong opinions on who's good at it. But plugging that in, if you're spending all that money on data on Snowflake or on Databricks, it's a question of whether or not that's a valuable spend for you.
That makes sense. So it still goes back to like, what is the business case behind this, that kind of thing, before you jump on the nice shiny new tool just because it fits into the modern data stack, and that's what the whole craze is saying, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the data stack, it's still there, and I think it's still going to remain in those 4 component ways. But how vendors and services are distributed across those data sets, I think ETL as a concept is on the wane, because I think ELT works better with what we know. We have so much processing horsepower in the storage and systems themselves, in stuff like in Databricks, in the cloud tiers that you store these databases on, doing the spinning up an in-memory ETL tool to do that transformation when you can just drop it in and do it on the actual storage system doesn't make a lot of sense until you start getting your excess query cost bills from Snowflake or something like that. And then you might want to. I'm just saying it can get dangerous there, guys. Don't unleash that. I've done that. Don't do that.
You have the invoice to prove it. Okay. All right. We got a question from Luke. It says, Sam, what technical professional communities would you recommend, say, the average Joe or Joseph coming up in the data world to join, and why?
Technical communities, there are a ton of them. I am on I personally am part of the AI ML community on LinkedIn. I am addictive followers of the players, and this is all on LinkedIn. Honestly, LinkedIn is more or less the space to be in to get involved and understand that technology and business merger level. I'm a big fan of the AI and ML groups there, and find folks that say things that resonate with you and follow them. I keep saying, I talk about Databricks all the time. I have friends at Databricks, so don't get me wrong. But
shameless plug, right?
Shameless plug. Phil could use the business, I'm sure. But they're also incredibly good at doing what they're doing right now. So community-wise, I would say, I don't know that I have a perfect answer for this, but find an AI ML community. Go into it with your eyes wide open. AI ML right now is currently at the point in the hype cycle that big data was in 2012. Okay, so and if you're not old enough to know what that means, I'm sorry. Also, go figure out what Gartner's hype cycle is. It's my favorite marketing thing in the whole world. The hype cycle release. But
I'm gonna look that up. You said Gartner's hype cycle.
Yeah, AI ML is. I mean, it's not oversold to the point that it is the future. It is oversold to the point where ChatGPT is not going to gain consciousness anytime soon.
That's what they want you to think, though. That's what ChatGPT wants you to think.
And then there's a lot of other things about that industry and about that about AI that are problematic. I mean, suddenly energy consumption and water consumption around the world goes to the roof. And anyway, that's a different story altogether. I'm way off of Luke's question.
I mean, you answered it. We just kind of went off on a little side plot about AI and stuff. But that does bring me to another question. So, like, what are the biggest takeaways that you see from this, big post ChatGPT, like AI craze, like the AI machine learning stuff? Like, what are some of the takeaways that you see?
Great question. So like I said, AI, ML, and I always say both because in my world, as an engineer and architect, we haven't created AI yet. Like I said, ChatGPT is not conscious and nowhere close to it. So we have not created AI. We have created expansive ML. ChatGPT at the end of the day is your phone's predictive text algorithm that's actually mastered a large language model. That said, I think the honest to God, the first takeaway sorry, my telemarketer dialed through. The first takeaway of AI is that as businesses, once you realize you want to do it, you can't do it through ChatGPT because that's public facing. You're going to dump all of your information onto the public web. No, that's not good. So you need to build your own. And when you start looking to build your own language model, to build your own backbone to run some sort of AI or ML internally, the first thing you're going to recognize is that your data is horrible. Your data is dirty. You do not have a data lake. You have a data swamp. You have you have a system that is cratered by years, if not decades, of technical debt that was never. Nobody's ever got to an MVP release and said, all that technical debt that we said we'd go back and get, let's go do that. No, you go to the next thing. And to build AI off of that, dirty in, dirty out, right? It's not going to work. So I think the most boring element of the data industry is data cleansing. Data, just cleaning what you have. But I think that's probably the single most important thing that any organization that really wants to do AI and ML on top of their data will need to do, because we're not all Facebook natives, data natives. Facebook and Apple and Amazon and these are companies that when they founded their company, they built data management and cleansing and data propriety into the model. Older organizations don't have that luxury, and until you clean your data, you're never going to get an AI that works.
Well, that makes sense for sure, man. I know it looks like we're coming up on time. So one question I would like to ask you is what's next for you? What do you have on the horizon?
I have some ongoing commitments going on right now. Like I said, I am working on a long-term business plan that I've been working on for a couple of years. It's data consultancy. It's not earth-shattering or world-breaking. I don't want to throw a shingle out there or anything, but I am working on improving that and building that out. My next opportunity is if someone out there wants to talk, I never say no to a conversation. I always have a call. I always talk to people. And if I don't know someone, then I know a lot of people who might be able to help you if I can't. So I'm working on data thrift. There, I did it. I threw the name out there. I'm working on building out what we want to try to do with that with a couple of core friends. It's more of a bootstrap than a startup, right? I'm taking my time. We're taking our time and doing it slow, like I said to start. But that's me in a nutshell. I'll always take a call if it's not a fit or something that makes sense for you. I might know somebody.
Awesome, thanks, man. And any last remarks? Any closing thoughts you want to leave us with?
No, I thank you for having me on. I feel like, like I said, I come at things sideways as a philosopher sometimes. So I appreciate you having me on to the podcast. Thank you to Spyglass for sponsoring it. Yeah, I'm happy. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thanks for joining too, man. But thanks everyone for joining us on this episode of Architects of Innovation, brought to you by, of course, Spyglass Partners. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and inspiration from our conversation with Sam. And remember, Spyglass Partners is your dedicated staffing partner. If you're an IT professional looking to make your next move or a company seeking top-tier talent, you can slide into my DMs or reach out to me on LinkedIn or email me at jjewell@spyglasspartners.com. Also, if you're open to collaborating with Sam, you can reach out to me or Sam directly, and you guys have great holidays.
Thank you much.